not only have, been a broker, but you've also represented industry in many forms, okay? You've been on advisory bodies and committees. Tell us a little bit about all the things you're doing there.
Okay. So with Customs, I'm on the Compliance Advisory Group, CAG.
Representing industry.
And we talk about issues, basically, problems.
And you get to give them
we get
industry
to give them
perspective.
Feedback.
Yeah.
It's not... COVID has slowed that down a lot because when we have a face-to-face meeting, we bite. Well, no, we bite. We're in a loving way.
Yeah, right.
We share our thoughts and feelings.
Okay, so it's a lot more colourful.
No, it's very polite, very professional. But also, those people on the committee are not concerned about saying, well, I disagree. And
Right.
That's the other thing as a broker.
Well, that's what you're there
Learn
for.
to disagree. Not just on everything, but you need to ask the difficult questions. You need to disagree, and you need not to be frightened to say that. So we'll say when we don't agree with something, and ABF will often take it on board, or ABF will say, no, well, because X, we can't do anything about it.
But you're having the constructive conversations, which are really important.
That's right.
Versus on you can't mention that.
No.
Yeah.
And I'm on DFAT, the Department of Foreign Affairs Rule of Origin Committee, and that's fantastic. We have pushed for years, and I'm the only customs broker. We've pushed for years to get a broker on that because we were getting free trade agreements made that weren't always possible to enforce in terms of operation, and the big one, you'd be aware of it, Chris, was that we had with TRAFTA, with the China Free Trade Agreement, just as one example, goods had to have direct shipment, which is fine. Direct shipment is defined, but what happens a lot in Australia is that from any country, we have a lot of overseas distribution centres. But the way that too many of our free trade agreements work is that those distribution centres need to be under customs control, or you lose the preference you obtain from the free trade agreement. And then you had issues like JAFTA, if freight going into Darwin, everything going into Darwin is transshipped, and it's all transshipped through Singapore, and Singapore's a free port, so there's no customs control. So nothing going into Darwin could have complied, and regulations were put in place to counter that. But so
that would mitigate the benefits of the free
that's
trade
right.
agreement.
Yeah. So the benefit we've got with me being on there and one of the lawyers being on there, there are other people on the Rule of Origin Committee. They tend to be certificate of origin issuing bodies. So the benefit they've got with me, and I don't want to mention his name.
Yeah, no, you can mention it.
With Andrew Hudson being on there, is that we'll say, have you thought about X?
Yeah.
The way that this works in real life is, ABC, and DFAT listen, which is just wonderful.
Fantastic.
So
they're consulting industry before they, sign off on these things, which is great. Yeah.
So we've been talking, as an example, about the EU Free Trade Agreement, which everyone asked me about. Yeah. EU Free Trade Agreement. One of the reasons that delayed it initially was that one of the conditions the EU wanted to put in place was that you couldn't claim preference on goods manufactured in Australia from imported components. So forget the rules of origin. But Australia manufactures from imported components, so
Correct.
that would have wiped any benefit.
But
they listened, and now the EU has dropped that demand. The delay at the moment, as I understand it, is the minister, the government pushing for more agricultural access, which is fine. But where I'm concerned, I'm worried about the geographical indicators, because things like feta and prosecco, and I don't know about camembert, but that sort of common name that we use in all our language, we'd no longer be able to use. And so Australian manufacturers...
commodities made here,
Yeah, if you go to the supermarket and you think, I need to buy feta, And you've got the European one called feta, and the Australian one is not able to be called feta. You know, you've got to call it Jimmy's Own Cheese or whatever. The consumer's not going to know.
No.
And they're just going to buy the European one. And so our own companies miss out.
Yeah, that's a huge commercial difference. Disadvantage, really.
And there's something like just under 400, I think. So a lot of them are irrelevant. You don't care. But there are too many generic ones that we need to negotiate on. And New Zealand just agreed to them. New Zealand already has a free trade agreement with the EU. So if anyone's interested, check out the New Zealand government website, because I'm pretty sure that's going to be our free trade agreement.